So Cascade is here on his spring Fling tour. Two dates at the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York, and you had the first one last night, right?
Yes, yeah.
How'd it go?
It was awesome. A few of these guys were there last night with me. Yeah, it was amazing. I loved it. Hammerstein, first time at Hammerstein. What a cool room. Man, I mean, I don't know. New York's got all these awesome theaters and different venues. But yeah, Hammerstein was amazing last night.
Any highlights from the show that stood out? Or?
Highlights of the show. It was extremely hot in there. So highlights of the show, me jumping out in the crowd and I'm completely drenched, and then I jumped out and got everybody else really, really wet, if they weren't wet.
Talk a little bit about the Spring Fling tour and the concept behind it. How'd you come up with doing this now?
Well, I haven't put any new music out for a while. My last album was 2 years ago. But in the world of electronic music, I'm constantly touring. I play 100, 150 shows a year. I've kind of stopped counting. I don't know. It depressed me one day when I counted, so I was like, I'm not going to do that anymore. I play a lot of shows. And anyway, I wanted to, it's hard to do just the nightclub thing. And I've been in an interesting spot for the last 3, 4, 5 years where it's like I'm in between these really large venues and theaters. And so for me, it was just about putting an idea, and that was it. That's why I came with Spring Fling. I'm just going to a handful of cities, take a concept out, the few new pieces of music I do have, and some of the stuff that I'm testing I wanted to just try out. Yeah, just go out on the road and have some fun, really. Nothing more than that. No depth there, but.
You've got a number of younger up-and-coming artists opening for you on the tour. You got Siddeley Neum here in New York. Talk a little bit about those artists and the relationships you have with them.
Neum, I met right after Disarm was put out, and he had posted a remix that he did. I released the stems to everybody. I'm a big advocate of this, trying to give out as much as possible. So I released the remix parts, or the stems, we call them in the biz. Anyway, I put the parts out, and he posted a remix, and somebody shot it over to me. I was like, oh my gosh, this is really good. Who is this guy? I need to know more. Found out he was from San Francisco kid, living in Colorado. I don't know. I had that connection with him, another American guy doing electronic music. There's not that many of us out there. So that next time I went to Colorado, I was doing a redo tour at the point, and he came out. He's like, let's meet. I met him and became friends with him and kind of kept up with him ever since. That was a couple years ago. And actually, this is the first opportunity that I've been able to tour with him, which was really cool. Last night, he smashed it. I thought he smashed it. I'm sure everybody else did. So, yeah, so show up early tonight if you're coming. Yeah.
Cool. And, you know, you've got some new music on the way. I know you've recently released a remix of Cold, the Maroon 5 song, a mashup with The Weeknd, and you have a Tinashe remix coming out, right?
Yeah. Today's Wednesday. It's coming out on Friday, the Tinashe Flame remix, which is cool. It's fun. It's a little bit different for me. Remixing's always fun because you're taking something that it's a pre-existing song. It already is out there in the marketplace, and people already have some idea of what it's supposed to sound like. And typically, when people come to me to do remixes, it's like, hey, can you make this work in the club world or make it fit in your box? Like, is there a different approach that we can take to this? And sometimes that's no, or sometimes I don't like the song, or sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to try this. And then certain times I'm actually approaching people like, hey, I really want to have this in my set, or I did something already. The In Common mix was, I did it on the 2-track. I didn't have the parts, and I made it because I wanted to play it. Then I sent it to their team, and Alicia's team, Alicia Keys, and they were like, we love this. And I'm like, well, I can make it sound a lot better if you give me the parts. So I finished it, and then it came out commercially, and it was, so it happens all sorts of different ways. I forget what the question is now.
Just about some of the new music you have on the way. I know you built a new studio, too.
Yeah, I could talk a little bit about the studio. A year ago, I finished a new studio, which I haven't talked much about at all to anyone. I don't know why. Because it's mine, and I keep it under my pillow. I love it so much. yeah, I haven't done any kind of blowout and whatever. I've done a few live broadcasts from there, but it's kind of a lifelong dream to build my own studio from the ground up. And I did that, moved in just about a year ago. And I've spent less time on the road. This is the least amount of touring I've done in the last 6 months, which is strange for me, but it was also awesome because I got to kind of break in the new studio, and I have tons of new music coming. And this is the hardest part for me, always, because when I create stuff, I kind of just want to put it up on SoundCloud and be like, here it is. But that way doesn't work so well because I've done that many times. I've learned over the years it's better to find the right partners and wait for the right time, the appropriate time to get it up and out there. But I have tons of new stuff in the work. I have this blackboard. I have one of these dry erase boards that I have like multiple ones. I'm an idea guy, so I have to see everything out, and I have flow charts and stuff going. And then I have this list of something like, 50 or 60 songs. And yeah, I'm just really excited. The future is very bright.
Do you find it, I'm always curious, because some people, find it, really easy to work on music and create new music and flesh out ideas when they're on the road. Other people, it's like they really need to be in their studio space, have their workflow. What's sort of the approach for you?
I have a long answer for that. Generally speaking, it's hard. I was up till like 4 or 5 in the morning last night, got up at 8:30, 9 o'clock. It's a short little window of sleep. So I'm kind of tired, and typically on a normal tour, I'm not staying multiple days in a city. Another thing I love about Spring Fling, I get to stay here and hang out in New York and eat pizza and hot dogs. It's hard because of the schedule, but so I work a little bit here and there. I think Ableton has been a huge push forward. It made it easier. The power of the laptop has become so much better than when I first started touring. So it is possible to get little ideas down. I think to be like, I'm going to make a whole song and finish this on the airplane today. Cool. Yeah, it's been done. I've done it. But for me, I'm not in as a rush anymore. I'm like, oh, cool, I'll get a good idea down. More often what happens is I come up with a cool idea. I have a cool experience on the road, and I carry around a notebook. I'm a very analog kind of guy, and I write down ideas, and typically those ideas become songs, lyrics. Little like, oh, that's a cool phrase. Maybe I should write something about that. All right, I'm going to write that down and try and remember it.
You're an artist who also has your hands in many different things. I know you recently announced a new partnership with Encase. Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah. So, every year in like January or February, the airlines send out these invites, and they are like, hey, you're in the 0.1% highest traveling in our airline. And when you get like 3 or 4 of those, you realize like, wow, I really do fly a lot. I think last year I was the highest, or it's this year. I was literally the highest status you can possibly be on 3 airlines. And the people always freak out when I go to check in at United. They're like, oh my gosh, your global service 2 million mile file. I'm like, yeah, I don't even fly you guys. I fly Delta more, They're like, what? And I'm like, I don't know. And then, anyway, so I was like, wow, I should do my own luggage. I have all these ideas about why the suitcase should fit in the overhead, and why my headphones are soaking wet the next day because they make the pouch out of plastic. And I had all these ideas, and I'm like, man, one of these days somebody's going to talk to him. And I was just kind of talking to my manager one day, Matt Mira, and I was like, man, we should hit up one of these brands. And we both carried some in-case product, and he hit him up, and come to find out, he's like, I'm a huge Cascade fan. The guy who runs the entire company. I'm like, and he's like, as a matter of fact, I was on a flight to, where were we going? It was from Barcelona, maybe to New York. I can't remember. It's better to hear him tell the story. But he's like, I was on that same flight with you guys. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I kind of remember that. I don't know, how late was I up the night before?
How many flights,
Yeah.
to remember?
I'm like, Barcelona, yes. But they love the idea. They're like, listen, you have all these crazy. I think initially they thought it was going to be like, yeah, just make a luggage line and, cool, we'll put my name on there. In that first creative meeting, I'm like, the zipper has to be like this, and it has to open this way. And they're like, oh, no, you really want to do this. I'm I'm like, yeah, I'm into it. Let's make it. So it was fun. And it's out there. And I mean, I've been traveling with it for over a year now because the first prototypes came out. And I was like, let me beat them up and see if it actually works the way I want it to work. And yeah, sure enough, it's been a really fun project. And I've had tons of fun doing it today. New York Times actually had a piece come out today. They were timing it with Spring Fling. But just me talking about luggage and what do I carry on the road, what kind of stuff.
Cool, and another thing that you've got going on is your label, Arcade. What sort of do you have coming up on that front?
Arcade, what's going on? Quite a few releases coming up. I'm trying to think what's around the corner. I don't have the schedule memorized. But I mean, the idea of Arcade, let me go back to that, and I won't tell you what's coming on in the future. Lots of good music's coming. I don't have all those off the top of my head. But yeah, I think the idea was people are sending me music. I get, I don't know, easily a couple hundred emails a week of friends or colleagues or people that I've met on the road, other producers, or get people that have just found me and said, hey, I'm working on this song. I'm a fan of yours. Do you think this would work in your set? Or this is unsigned. Do you know anywhere that this would fit? Or hey, is this a fit for Arcade? And before I had a label, I could never have that conversation. So, and it's pretty typical in my world to a lot of the musicians, electronic artists, independent artists have little imprints that they kind of put out and help guys that are around them. And initially it was guys like Sid and some of my close friends. He's graduated on and moved on to some bigger and better things now. But I think that's the idea, is for me to just connect with like-minded people and find songs that people out there, fans of mine, can enjoy also.
Cool. And recently you took to social media and announced the return of Cascade Connect, which, for the fans here that are diehard, I'm sure they know, but for a lot of people who are watching may not know. So maybe you could just talk a little bit about the backstory of that and, the news.
Sure. Cascade Connect was started by Colleen Burns, who I became friends with over the years. She became a good friend. She was just kind of like the original mega fan. Beautiful soul. She tragically died. And what she started was a group of people. She kept reaching out to people and kind of started this fan club. It was never anything that I was really a part of. It was just something like anytime I went to a city, I'd see Colleen, and she'd be with all these great people that she'd kind of accumulated and met along the way, along her journey and traveling to all these different shows. And we just became better and better friends. And when she passed away, I think a lot of us were really, there's a lot of Connect people here today. We were heartbroken. It was very sudden and tragic. And I think as a community of people, we didn't know what to do. We were in shock. So we've kind of just paused for a moment and, helped each other and talked amongst friends and tried to get past that and realize all the good things that Colleen had done and kind of carry that forward. So we just recently announced that, it's moving forward. We got all the handles back and, in memory of what Colleen had built. She was an incredible person, and I think the success of that group and why it flourished and did so well is because she was at the heart of it and reaching out to people, and it was very genuine. She wasn't there trying to sell anything for me, or it wasn't even from me. It was just her sharing her passion for my music with other people and connecting with other people that, were like-minded. So in that spirit, we're moving ahead and, never forgetting her and what she's established, but, kind of starting new and fresh. And, it's a wonderful thing to be back, and it's wonderful for me to connect with people. I go to all these shows, and people come out, and I see them, and they've got these jerseys, and they're very boisterous. This is good. That's what I like at my shows. So that's a good thing. That's a good part. Continue to do that. But yeah, it's cool for me. It's like a core group of people that have been around me for a while now.
Very cool. Well, I think we're going to open up the floor to fan questions now. So if anyone had any questions for Cascade.
Hey, what's up?
Hey.
Mike, what's going on?
See you right.
Mic'd up, literally. Oh my gosh. If you don't know, his handle is mic'd up. What? Let's just take a moment.
It's like mind-blowing inception right now. Well, anyways, I've been following you for a long time, and I know that you have a very diverse music palette. I see in your Spotify playlist. I follow all the time. So I'm curious, because I love music myself. I'm curious, what hip hop and R&B artists do you draw influences from? Because I love hip hop, and I'm curious to know what your take on that.
All right, hip hop for me. Let me see. I want to be correct here. Listen, I was born in the 70s. I'm a child of the 80s. So, like, really the hip hop that means something to me is kind of that original De La Soul, Tribe Called Quest, Black Sheep, like that original kind of New York sound, which was very kind of, to me, it was reminiscent of early house music and what was happening. I mean, De La Soul was on, they had a house track in the 80s, for crying out loud, that they emceed on. Those worlds, when I was a kid, house music and hip hop were very close. They weren't seen as separate things. I think that wasn't until like the mid-90s when it was like hip hop was over here and ravers were over here. Because before it was, and the music was being made in a similar fashion too. We were both sampling disco records. They were just sampling ones that were slower. We were sampling ones that were faster. But it was the same idea. And I feel like the same kind of audio stylings were there. It felt the same to me. So that's my initial stuff. I mean, today I like, I don't know, Future's doing really cool stuff right now. You know, I kind of like the current stuff. I'm not that different than anybody else. But yeah, I mean, I still follow De La Soul on Instagram and stuff like that, you know? Like, I'm still interested in the stuff that... Tribe is, yeah, man. I mean, Q-Tip, when I met him, I was like, fell over a little bit. I was like, hi. Because for a minute there, he was DJing quite a few parties, so we kind of ran into each other, and we're emailing back and forth, and he's like, man, I like this record and that record you share. And I'm like, wait, am I sharing records with Q-Tip? What world is this? This is crazy.
One of those surreal moments.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those, like, I guess I did do something right. I don't know.
Do we have time for another question?
Hello. Thank you for being here. So was there a particular song that you had a hard time making or producing, or, did you have a hard time, making?
A song that I had a hard time producing or making?
Yes, or a lyric or anything like that.
All right. All right, you're looking for a confession, aren't you? Oh, man. I got a few of them. I'm trying to think which is the least painful to share. Well, let me say this first. Typically, for me, the way I produce, and certainly in the beginning of my career, I've been producing music for a long time, so it's gone through some changes over that time. But for most of my career, 90% of my production career, if it was hard to make, I didn't do it. That was it. I felt like if I'm sitting here laboring over the song, something's wrong, it's not working, either the idea's not working or I don't like the production, or I just don't like the lyrics. And this happens. Like, I get an idea out and I'm like, you come up the next, you think, oh, you go to bed at 3 in the morning, you're like, oh my gosh, this is gonna change my entire world. Then you wake up at 9 and you're like, this is total garbage. What was I thinking last night? What happened? Like, what? Too many Fruit Loops? Like, what was going on? What was I thinking? So that does happen, but when that does, I just put that stuff aside. I'm not one of these guys. Now is a little bit different because I have a ton of unreleased music, but typically, if I had stuff on my hard drive, I was bundling it and giving it to a label, and I didn't like have bits that I was like just saving. I never had that because I was like, make the music, get it out there. Right now, I'm just in a little bit of a different position, so I am saving some stuff, but I did a Yoko Ono remix once that I could share that with you. That was extremely difficult. So difficult that it never came out. I don't think I ever finished it. It was one of these, listen, remixes, this is a good subject.
This is the first time
that we haven't
this
talked
has come
about.
to light.
Let's talk remixes for a minute. Remixes, 10 years ago, was a way for dance music artists to make money. Because typically, we're getting paid a few $100s on the road, and the music was, it was very hard to make a living 10, 15 years ago doing this, extremely difficult. There were only like a handful of guys that were doing it, and then there were a bunch of dudes like me that were just starving. Anyway, so but remixes were still quite popular. But I mean, it was like they'd pay like $1,000 or something, and this is, 2, 3, 4 days of work. When they came through on commercial remixes, the budgets would be $5,000 or $10,000, which at the time was a lot of money. So I remixed some stuff and I always appreciated the challenge of take this square peg and put it in the round hole. For me, it was like a puzzle, right? I'm trying to figure this out. How do I make this song work in a nightclub? Whether or not if I don't like the song or not, because back then I'm like, I just need the check. I have to pay rent this month, so I don't care if I like the song. I'm going to figure out how to make this work in my set. If I'm just taking one phrase from the first verse, that's enough. I like that phrase. Anyway, so it's a very different. Now I'm in a much different position. It's like if I don't like the song, I don't remix it. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm super busy. Sorry. But I think back then it was very different. And I think back then there was just more remixing happening because pop music and club music were so far apart. Now it all kind of sounds like club music to me. I turn on the radio, I'm like, yeah, 2 a.m. Like what? It all sounds like club music to me now. So I don't know.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hey, Cascade, I'm one of your biggest fans. What's your favorite club to play at and venue? And when you're on the road, what kind of accessories do you have when you're on all these shows, when you're going around the world and traveling and doing your shows? What's your favorite venue and what kind of accessories do you bring with you just to be on point all the time?
Okay, so favorite venue, and then how do I change my sets up for these different places? That's kind of what you're asking there. Favorite venue? I don't know, man. There's so many. It'd be easier to give you a top 10. Like in Tokyo, I love Ageha. I mean, dude, whatever. Hammerstein last night was insane. That's the first time I've ever played. I was like, this is freaking crazy. And I get that a lot. I love, it's just that Echo Stage is amazing. It has to be in the top 10 here in the US for sure. I don't know, there's so many crazy good venues. The convention center in LA was pretty damn cool too. So I don't know, there's a lot of great venues out there. I still think the Gorge in Seattle is just because like you can't beat natural beauty. I'm always the guy at the festival. It's like Sunset Fest. I'll take the Sunset thing because it's like whatever light show anybody's bringing, Marshmallow with the head on, Dead Mouse. I don't care. Bring the cube out. I'll take the Sunset, man. I'm like, you can't beat this sunset at the Gorge. So I've had lots of incredible evenings at the Gorge. So that's one of my favorite venues. As far as different sets, this is a really tricky thing. I think, it's all right if I go over a little bit, because this is kind of a cool thing to talk about, and you guys are with me, and you're fans, so this is a cool time to have a conversation. One-sided conversation. Anyway. I think early on in my career, I was DJing, quote-unquote DJing a lot more because I have 6 songs and I'm playing 2 or 3, 4 hours. So I work those 5 or 6 songs in this, 3-hour musical tapestry. Now, I don't know, 9 albums later, hundreds of remixes later, it's like, I could play for hours and hours and hours on end with my own catalog. And I think ultimately the artist side of me, when I saw Daft Punk, it was like this revelation. It was like, oh, they're just being them. Like, the DJ thing's awesome, and that was at a time that I was kind of like starting to really get full swing into production and become more of a songwriter. I'm like, man, that's the end goal, is to have people connect with me and my music personally and turn this into a show. As much as I love DJing and being in a nightclub and doing that, that's kind of one art form. Then doing these things that I do at like Hammerstein Ballroom or in the convention center, it's kind of another thing. It's a different thing. It's a show. This is a concert of Cascade. This is a Cascade concert. This is not me in a nightclub. And in my world, I've tried to kind of reconcile those two things and find a happy medium. I have redo shows that really focus on that early kind of what I used to do. And then I have the Cascade concerts where it's like I'm really showcasing me and my music. So I think for the different sets now, where I am in my career, I've always got like cool, here's my music and here's my songs that I want to kind of play right now and that I'm pushing, that I'm feeling, that I wrote recently or remixed recently, or oh, here's something that I just heard that's 10 years old that I really love. Man, I should put that back in the set. And then there's stuff people on Twitter. giving me suggestions of songs last night that I fit all 3 of them in there, two or three. I was like, man, I haven't heard that Robin remix in a long time. I listened, I'm like, that's hot. I'm gonna put that in there. So anyway, you know, I included her suggestions last night, and they were very well thought out suggestions. Thank you. So I mean, I'm kind of always looking around and just figuring it out and seeing what works. But yeah, I mean, ultimately at the bigger shows, I'm trying to make it more about me and my music, and then in the smaller, subdued shows, I'm just kind of screwing around, having a good time, and showcasing me as a DJ. I don't know. They're 2 different things, but they resemble each other so much, and I think that's part of the problem with electronic music, because some people masquerading as other things, and it's all confusing now. Like, wait, are you that guy or this guy? Or I don't know what guy you are. Because they're 2 different talents, and they're 2 different, you know, they're 2 different things, really, in my mind. But we're in an interesting time, you know, whatever. I say that, and I'm one of the guys that paid $50 to go see Milli Vanilli when I was a kid, so whatever.
You and many others, though.
Yes, exactly.
All right, so Cascade plays Hammerstein Ballroom tonight. They're all invited, right?
What's that?
They're all invited to the show?
Yeah,
or?
tonight's. Oh, wait. We do have. I can't forget the best part of this. I came stocked with, for the few of you who, well, I'm like, oh, you guys got tickets. All right, you guys are. But for the few of you who don't have tickets, I brought tickets for you and a friend to come out tonight if you do not have a ticket. So, yeah, there you go. I mean, it's not a new car, but it's... And you a ticket. But thank you, yeah.
Guys, give it up for Cascade.